Each candidate will be given 1 minute for opening and closing remarks. Today's questions were developed in partnership with our co-hosting organizations. Some questions will be asked to all candidates, while others will be directed to a subset of candidates. The partial group questions were randomly pre-assigned to numbers, and candidates have just drawn those numbers. The random draw has also determined the candidates' seating order. For each question, candidates will have 45 seconds to answer. The lovely team from the League of Women Voters will be doing the timing for this forum. At 30 seconds left, they will hold up a 30 seconds paddle. At 15 seconds left, they will hold up a 15 seconds paddle. When your time is up, they will hold a stop paddle. At time, you will be allowed to finish your sentence. Then they will start ringing the bell. To be fair and make sure we get through our questions, we will be strict with the timing. Candidates will not be allowed to rebut outside of their allotted time to answer questions. With that, we will begin with 1 minute opening remarks for each candidate, beginning with Sam Poland. And please turn on your mics.
Y'all hear me?
A little louder, please.
Good evening. My name is Sam Poland. I grew up in Wilmette, Illinois. I'm a graduate of New Trier High School, and I studied political science at Washington College. After school, I joined the United States Army, where I served for 9 years on active duty and eventually reached the rank of captain. I spent 5 of those years in Army Special Operations. I've deployed 3 times, and the last 2 times as part of a special warfare task group attached to U.S. Navy SEALs. After I left the military, I took a job at the Pentagon, where I served as a senior policy strategy advisor for the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, as well as the commander of NORAD and U.S. NORTHCOM. Truth is, I loved that job, but last year I found myself in a position where I could no longer in good conscience keep working under this administration. The problem is I'm not ready to give up the fight for this country. And right now, more than ever, we need a new generation of leadership who is committed to that fight. So that's why I'm running for Congress now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next candidate, Nick Piatti.
Hi, my name is Nick Piatti. I'm a former public school teacher, federal prosecutor, and senior leader at Microsoft. And I'm running because at this moment of maximum danger for our country, the Democratic Party seems to be all out of ideas and all out of energy. And after being in this race for a few months, I think I know why. We are trapped inside 2 machines. First is the machine we're all familiar with. It's big money donors and political insiders trying to pick their favorite established politician before the race even starts. The second machine is the social media algorithms that we've all been living inside for the last 20 years that reward the loudest voices that get the most attention, even if they're not saying much. We need to break out of those machines to get the kind of leadership and vision we need to win. My vision is a new American century, which is about using growth and innovation to create expansive opportunity and care for all Americans. That is the kind of vision that we need if we want to build a winning majority, take back the White House, and end this madness. Thank you.
Thank you. Justin Ford.
Hello, my name is Justin Ford. I'm going to stand up so the people in the back can see me. I am not a politician. I'm a public health professional. I got into this race because I want the Democrats to start focusing on working class issues again. Unions help in everything that we appreciate in our workplace, from the breaks to the 40-hour work week to we need to support working families. We need to support unions in order to rebuild the middle class. I do not believe that we as a country can afford to continue to lose working class folks. 69% in recent polls said they didn't believe in the American dream anymore. We need to support them. We need to start to deliver for them. And that's what my campaign is about and what we're trying to do. So I wish I had more time to explain, but maybe in some of the questions.
Thank you. Howard Rosenblum.
Hello, everyone. My name is Howard Rosenblum. And as you can see, I'm deaf and I'm using sign language. So if you'd like to clap for me, this is the visual way to show me. And if you don't like what I'm saying, you can go ahead and boo because I don't care. I won't be able to hear you anyway. So I'm running because I was born and raised here in Skokie. And I've been a civil rights attorney for 33 years, and I'm fighting for people who are marginalized, especially people with disabilities. And I've done that successfully to change the system. And I'm against, I went after Netflix. And now all of us have caption access on Netflix. I also went over Harvard and MIT to make sure that their websites were accessible. And I most proudly, I went after President Trump and I sued and I won. Because he was not providing sign language interpreters. And we need that for systemic change to happen. I worked closely with Congress and the president's administrations over the years. I was appointed twice by President Obama, and I was also appointed by Governor Pritzker. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeff Cohen.
No.
Oh, there you go.
There we go. Hello? Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Jeff Cohen. I'm an economist. Stand up. Sure. I'm Jeff Cohen, and I'm an economist. And I wish I conjured up some image of Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible, but I know that it doesn't. What I can tell you, though, is that I've worked for 30 years on complicated economic problems on the economy. And I know what drives prices up and what drives wages down. I know what crushes family economics. But what I really, really want to tell you about is that we've all been sold a bill of goods. And that bill of goods is that the economy is only supposed to work for a few people and the rest of us tread water. And we've also sent a lot of politicians to Washington who just do not seem to get anything done. It's promises followed by incompetence. But I'm an economist and I know something about that. And I would tell you that that is bullshit.
Thank you. Laura Fine.
Hello, everybody. I am State Senator Laura Fine. We are at a pivotal moment in our nation's history. Donald Trump is constantly assaulting our families. Many of these families are living on the economic edge. I am the only candidate who's led and won fights against some of the biggest special interests and bullies in our country. After a near fatal car accident 15 years ago, our insurance company betrayed us and tried to cancel our policy after the accident. But they picked a fight with the wrong woman. I have made battling the insurance industry my mission. And because of the work I have accomplished in Springfield, Illinois is one of the most consumer-friendly states when it comes to healthcare. I don't chase the headlines. I get the work done. I pass the legislation that helps you. Illinois is a 100% pro-choice state because I have been on the front lines, and I'm hoping to take this to Washington.
Thank you. Bushra Amiwala.
This mic grab is our first test. We passed. Hello, everyone. My name is Bushra Amiwala, and I serve on the Board of Education of Skokie School District 73.5. I'm a nonprofit leader and just left my 5-year-long career at Google to run for Congress. My parents came to the United States from Karachi, Pakistan, and built their life in Illinois 9 brick by brick. My dad's a small business owner, my mom's a teacher, and I'm running for this seat because I know the everyday problems that impact all of us. We're seeing the rich get richer, the middle class shrinking, and us getting taxed on every single thing left and right, from housing, healthcare to groceries. Government can and should work for us, and I'm a product of that in its truest, most beautiful form, hoping to revive that in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you. You know that.
Thank you so much for hosting this forum. No? Yeah. Thank you so much for hosting this forum. My name is Daniel Biss. I have the honor of serving as mayor of Evanston. And let me tell you what life was like in Evanston today. ICE all over the streets, kidnapping our people, tackling people in front of school children. Guys, we're in an emergency. These are not normal times, and we need someone who is ready for the fight. We're doing everything we can in Evanston right now. For example, last week, we made Evanston City property ice-free zones. We passed the strongest welcoming city ordinance in the state. We're doing everything we can. We also need to win with activism. The solution cannot come from government alone. We need someone in office who has won fights in capitals and who's been fighting in the streets, because that marriage between activism and government is the only way we're going to get through this. I'm running to bring that to Washington. I'd be honored to have your support.
Thank you. Mike Simmons.
Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Simmons, and in 2021, I became the first openly Ethiopian American and LGBTQ person to serve in the Illinois Senate. And since then, I have hit the ground running, where in just 4 years, I've been able to pass 50 bills into law, doing the work, but also pushing back against complacency, pushing it back against hateful Republicans, and let's just say it, pushing back on complacent Democrats who are out of touch with their constituents. This is why I'm running for Congress, because right now we need people fighting in Washington who have the lived experiences, who understand what it means to grow up in a household where you have to choose between food and rent and healthcare bills, and also have the legislative experience to make a difference for this district. I'm so proud to be here as a candidate for Congress. I hope that you will pay attention to my website, mikesimmons.org, and consider voting for me to go to Congress and be only the first person, LGBTQ person, to ever represent any of Chicago in the US Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Please stand up.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bruce Leon. I'm a fifth generation Chicagoan, an entrepreneur, and the 50th Ward Committeeman. Right now, a lot of people are hurting. Democrats are fighting for democracy, fighting for women's rights. At our best, we are fighters and activists, but we need more today. We need problem solvers. We are the party of big ideas, civil rights, Obamacare, the New Deal. When my mom died by suicide when I was 20, it broke me. I learned that silence is another kind of defeat, and resilience is turning silence into purpose. I've made that my struggle in life to help others feel their pain, but come up with practical solutions to solve things. We won't fix Congress by yelling louder on TikTok. We fix it by rebuilding trust and working across the divide. I know how to fight conviction and with compassion. That's the spirit I want to bring to Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Andrew.
Good evening. I'm surprised that you're ready for the fight again after this long weekend. Thank you for being out there on Saturday, and thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Phil Andrew. I'm a former FBI agent. I was a hostage negotiator with the FBI. I got involved in public safety over 30 years ago when I was shot in the Lori Gann attack in Winnetka, Illinois. I narrowly survived that incident, but I was asked by a doctor before I left the hospital, who sat on my bed, and he asked me what I was going to do about this. And that journey has taken me to fight terrorism, to work against public corruption, to go to other people's crises and bring them to safety. I now run a public safety and violence prevention and crisis management firm called PAX Group. I've stepped into this race because the oath I took some 25 years ago to serve and protect the Constitution is still alive. I have 3 children in the United States Navy. We cannot give up our ship.
Thank you. Jill Manrique.
Ladies ready? Hi, my name is Jill Manrique, and I am running for Congress. What I know is that no one at these tables are going to save us. What I know is that the power is in the people, and that the only way that we can get true liberation is through each and every one of us. If anybody up here promises you otherwise, then sincerely question that. I'm a labor organizer. I'm also a director for an organization that builds power, builds union power, builds people power. That's at the core of who I am. I'm also a mother of 3, and I'm a working mother of 3. So I'm working through this. I am a working person, and that is the type of people that we need to be sending to Congress. Folks who understand
what happens to your family when you get priced out of your living situation, and how hard it is to buy groceries, and how impossible it is to pay for daycare. We need folks who understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kat Abou-Ghazaleh.
Hi, my name is Kat Abou-Ghazaleh. I am a researcher and journalist who covers the far right. From educating millions on disinformation to getting Tucker Carlson fired, I have a track record of fighting and winning against the right, something that many of our leaders do not. But I also think that politics can be better. I don't think we have to throw vulnerable people under the bus. Instead, I think we can fight for a future where everyone can afford housing, groceries, and healthcare with money left over to save and spend. And we also don't have to play into big money and corruption. I am one of 2 candidates up here, including Jill, that is funded primarily by small dollar donors, with the most in-district donors, by the way. And we use our resources to not just reach voters, but improve their lives. Our campaign office doubles as a mutual aid hub, and our events range from punk shows to food drives. But actions speak louder than words. That's why whether it's feeding the hungry or getting beat up by ICE every week, I will continue to fight for a better future even before Election Day, because a better future is possible, but we have to fight for it together.
Thank you. And we'll start with our first question. I see a lot of folks standing in the back. If there's an empty chair next to you, could you please raise your hand in case folks want to sit down? There's some empty chairs, so in case folks want to take a seat, those are where the seats are. Thank you. Our first question, which will be to all candidates, it's a multi-part question. What do you believe the government's role should be in providing health care as a human right, including reproductive health care and gender-affirming care, and protecting the jobs of healthcare workers? All in 45 seconds. And we will start with Mr. Pullen.
So I'll just start with saying healthcare should be a universal human right. The fact that we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world and we cannot give healthcare to our citizens is absolutely embarrassing. People shouldn't have to choose between going to the doctor and paying their bills. That's insane. As far as the complexities of individualized care, in a perfect world, I'd say yes, the government should provide everybody with every opportunity they need to get the care, including reproductive rights and gender affirming care, if that's what we agree as a people to do. But right now, we need to address the major problems in the healthcare community, which is that the healthcare world is a for-profit industry right now. And that's not going to make us any better. That's not going to win us. That's not going to save any more lives. And the reality is we need to be better than this. We need to address the healthcare situation before we can start talking about providing cost savings for everybody else.
Thank you. And to reduce on transition time, I'm going to ask that folks pass the mic down with a question for everyone. We'll just keep going. Oh, sorry. I don't mean the individual mic, but just rather go one after the other.
Healthcare should absolutely be a universal right. So I come to that point of view. My parents are both physicians who worked in public hospitals here in Chicago. And from day one, I've understood that healthcare is so essential to what it means to live a full life that there's no reason that anyone should not have. Now, I come from a business background. You might think I would say, I want the private sector here. I don't want a public option. Absolutely not. It's been enough of waiting for the private sector to figure this out. It's time to give everyone a public option. When it comes to reproductive care or gender affirming care, the answer is very simple. Those are kinds of healthcare. And if you believe healthcare is a human right, you believe that people should have access to those things. Finally, when it comes to training people for healthcare professions, I worked at Microsoft and on AI products. I know the future, we're all very worried about what kind of jobs are going to be available. I think care professions are one of the most critical things we need to invest in. And so I'm out of time, but I'd love to talk more about it.
If they would have given this to us ahead of time, we could have all picked our favorites and gone down there because a lot of us agree. Healthcare is a human right. Everybody should have healthcare. We should not be worried about things like that. We need to make sure that women's healthcare is healthcare. So obviously women have a right to choose what to do with their bodily autonomy, but also about 20 out of every 100,000 live births in this country lead to the mother's mortality. We can do better. We have to do better with our care. Another interesting statistic is that about 33%-ish of new nurses are going to want to be out in 2 years. We have to do better for our healthcare workers. We have to make it better for their jobs so that they're there when we need them. I'm sure that all of us could talk for way more than 45 seconds, but my time is done.
We need to fight back against what's happening. That one big bullshit bill, it's terrible. It needs to be undone to make sure that all of us continue to have subsidies for our affordable healthcare and benefits. We can see our premiums have been increasing every month. And with the government shutdown, we need to have universal healthcare for all people. And every developed country has it in the world. The same for this country. We should have it. Not only for all of us, but also for people who are marginalized, people who are poor, immigrants, people with disabilities, people who need gender affirming care, also all people, and should not be ignored by big business. And we need to change the system.
Of course, I agree that healthcare is a human right. I'm going to take a slightly different tack, which is I've wanted to explain a little bit about what the ACA subsidies mean in terms of your healthcare. A 60-year-old person living in Chicago who makes $65,000 a year, if the subsidies aren't extended, will have their premium go from $5,500 to $10,200. So does $65,000 a year sound wealthy to you? I don't think so. So the Republicans complained that the extensions were just because of COVID ring hollow for me. I mean, do we all feel that we recovered since COVID? Of course, everything else that people said makes total sense.
Thank you for this question. Medical debt is one of the leading causes of bankruptcy in the United States. I completely understand this because it almost broke my family after my husband's car accident when we found ourselves with over $600,000 in medical bills. For the past 13 years, I have made it my mission in Springfield to fight the powerful special interests, especially the insurance industry, and make sure healthcare is more affordable and accessible throughout Illinois. And that includes reproductive healthcare and gender affirming care. I have been the driving force behind healthcare in our state, and I intend to take that to Washington.
I am a one-stop shopper. Universal healthcare is the option. From the 33 industrialized nations in the world, all of them but one have a universal healthcare model, and that is us. Because insurance is a for-profit middleman that makes extra money off of us. Gender affirming care and reproductive health care should be no different than needing insulin, should be no different from needing an EpiPen if you have asthma, and healthcare workers will be protected as opposed to being paid and getting paid their fair share if insurance is not continuing to buy our candidates and elected officials on both sides of the aisle, which I will never be the recipient of. Thank you.
First of all, we need Medicare for all. That's the most efficient way to actually cover everyone universally, no exceptions. Second of all, we have to protect not only healthcare jobs, but the quality of those healthcare jobs. I've walked picket lines with healthcare workers, supported unionization drives, and fought against a for-profit healthcare company when they bought a hospital in Evanston, laying off workers. Finally, reproductive care and gender affirming care are healthcare. And I want to be very clear about this. There is a live debate inside the Democratic Party right now about whether or not we should throw transgender kids under the bus. There are people who are saying the solution to our political ills is to bully the most vulnerable people in the country. I will not stand for that.
This is an issue that is so important, and I want to talk about how I really think I stand out in this crowd of candidates. First, it's about the vision. We absolutely should have Medicare for all. We should absolutely have universal health care. If people are still not supporting that in 2025, I don't know what else to say to them. What I would also say to this, in the Illinois Senate, I did not wait for anybody to pat me on the head and say, you can start passing bills. I've been there 4 years, and I've already gotten nearly half a dozen bills passed that increase healthcare equity, including legislation that cancels medical debt for 350,000 households, including legislation that prohibits insurance companies from sending bills to people who are uninsured. Would you believe that that was a fight in the Illinois Senate? And I'm running for Congress to bring that same energy to a body that is woefully out of touch on this issue. I'm not taking any money from corporate PACs so that I will listen to the people of the 9th District when it comes to the healthcare debates in Washington.
When I was running Tandem HR, we provided healthcare and bought healthcare for over 17,000 workers in Chicago area and other companies. I've had quite a bit of experience. I believe that we need to have a partnership, a private-public partnership. Government needs to provide a safety net, not a hammock. To say that there's just one solution that will work for 17% of the economy is a little bit naive. I think that we need to have a program that provides levels of care, that everybody gets a basic level of care, but it has to work in conjunction with the private industry. That's my solution, that we can all work together to find and improve Obamacare without throwing it out the window. Thank you.
I personally have been a beneficiary of some of the finest healthcare. When I was shot, I happened to still be on the insurance policy for the University of Illinois. It took $65 and I had to take some summer classes. That was a little bit of a burden at the back end of that summer, but it allowed for my family to avoid having to absorb the costs of serving a gunshot. Gun violence is a significant weight on our health system. Let me be clear. I support access to affordable, quality health care for everyone. This is a drag on our economy. And I've got 2 daughters, one who is serving in the United States Navy. The notion that she would have less rights over her body than her mother is abominable.
Healthcare is a human right, like period, as end of sentence. Medical bankruptcy is absolutely dystopian. The fact that it's even a debate is wild to me. Our healthcare, along with our housing, is everything. If we aren't healthy, if we aren't taken care of, what more, like what are we supposed to do? How do you go to work? How do you take care of your children? Raise your hand if you're a woman who's ever had to convince their doctor that something hurts and it's real. Yes, thank you. It's ridiculous. Healthcare, women's healthcare, healthcare for our trans siblings, all of those things are a basic human need. And it needs to be decoupled immediately from the for-profit system. And let's not forget that the VA is the biggest medical healthcare system in the country, and it's also suffering. Thank you.
I want to start to say that reproductive health care and gender affirming care are human rights, just as healthcare is, and any Democrat who wants to argue against that is not a Democrat. Now, the other thing is Medicare is absolutely necessary and we should protect it, but it should be the transition and not the conclusion. Your teeth are not luxury bones. Your mental health matters. If you need glasses, you should be able to see without worrying about the costs. And that needs to be included in universal healthcare, especially in the richest country in the world. And to guarantee the best care possible, we need to support our healthcare workers. This means supporting unions. This means listening when they insist on policies like nurse-patient ratios. And this means providing educational support. We need to be paying for medical school for our doctors.
Thank you. The Federal Reconciliation Bill, this is the next question. The Federal Reconciliation Bill grants more than $150 billion in additional funding to Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, on top of regular annual appropriations at a time when ICE agents are terrorizing our communities. How would you work to hold ICE accountable? And what role do you think Congress should play in shaping or restricting ICE's funding and activities? And for this question, we will start with Mr. Piatti and loop back around to Mr. Poland.
I think the first thing to answer about that question is, do you mean between 2026 and 2028 when Trump is still in office, or post 2028? One of the things that I wanted to talk about in this campaign is I see a lot of promises about what we're going to do in Congress as Democrats on day one, how we're going to hold people accountable, how we're going to rein it in. I think we have to be very clear-eyed about the fact that immigrants are a scapegoat for this president. That's not going to change if Democrats win a few more seats or if we get a little more progressive. In the near term, we should resist. We should fight every time we can. We should hold up the appropriations. But we should realize that the way we're really going to defend our communities, the way we're really going to make people safer is by putting together a party that can actually win the White House back. Because people will not be safe in this country until we change who's giving the orders.
The amount of resources we're using right now to terrorize our neighbors is unconscionable. We are taking other police officers off the street. We're taking ATF off the street. We're taking FBI off the street. They're supposed to help us defend ourselves against terrorism, to just chase people around and scare them and throw them into vans like Mayor Biss was saying. This is not acceptable. But I agree, in order to take this, we need to first take the House. With the House, we can use it to do investigations at the very minimum. If we can take the House and the Senate, we can take back the appropriations. And obviously, we're going to need to get the judiciary straightened out because I have some serious problems with some of the rulings coming out of the Supreme Court right now.
First of all, we need to look at the unconstitutional activities that ICE has been involved in. We need to investigate all of the law enforcement agencies that have been taking these actions and prosecute them for their crimes against our people. That's the number one. We need to make sure they understand that they are liable. Not the people who are here that they are arresting. They themselves need to be prosecuted. And in addition to that, we need to restructure ICE to focus on how to make sure people who have moved here have the proper procedure to go through to become naturalized citizens. There are many of us who know family ourselves who are naturalized citizens, and we need a better system. We need to improve that.
Economists think a lot about trade-offs, but it's not just about money trade-offs. There's a safety trade-off with ICE that's very disturbing. If it was the case that there were hundreds and hundreds of violent criminals in a Home Depot parking lot across from the soccer field in Evanston, maybe we'd feel differently about shutting down the soccer matches and taking that away from kids. But that's not what they've done. They haven't provided any evidence. They show up masked with no accountability. So that's a trade-off that I do not think our society is willing to make.
Trump is using ICE as his own personal army. You know how you fight bullies? You change the law. In the Illinois General Assembly, I have filed legislation that will protect immigrants in hospitals, in schools, in the workplace, and provide them with legal aid so they can get the protections that they need. I've also been working to empower my constituents so they know how to protect their neighbors. In Congress, I will do the same. We will stop this now so this never happens again.
The first time ICE was in our streets here in Skokie was in February. This is not new, and ICE as an institution needs to be abolished. While our federal workers are not getting paid during a government shutdown, ICE is, by the way, to terrorize our neighbors and kidnap them off the streets. This appropriations bill instead needs to be invested in more public defenders to make it so there's a clear path to citizenship for our neighbors and families like mine that came to this country for a better life. And that is the opposite of what we are seeing right now. Thank you.
The reason I talk about abolishing ICE is that the fundamentals of that organization are deeply corrupt and lawless. They are breaking the law. I use the word kidnapping on purpose, right? These are masked men with no accountability, snatching people from our streets on a daily basis. This is deeply dangerous. And so what do we need? We need Democrats in Congress who are willing not to bend, who are not going to find it uncomfortable after a couple days of a shutdown and say, oh, wait, never mind, I guess we need to cave. So let's start with this. No masked agents. Let's start with this. Real accountability. Let's start with this. Real oversight. So there's actual hearings for these lawless criminal acts. And finally, abolish ICE.
We have to think about what people in power are saying right now and ask ourselves, where is the outrage? Because I, as an Illinois state senator, have been on the far north side of Chicago and my district, which was flooded by ICE today, literally helicopters flying over my home. Someone abducted from a car violently a block from my home at 2 a.m. Western. And I was the first one there to look after that family. And then I went to the state Senate last week for the veto session. And I asked the governor, I asked the Senate president, why is this happening? This is illegal. What are we going to do about it? And I've been disappointed at the lackluster response that I have seen from Democratic leadership on this issue. I can tell you that if I get elected to Congress within the first 10 days, I am filing legislation to abolish ICE because I don't want any reform on this issue because we have seen that this is being used to weaponize our communities. ICE has no role in America and deportations are never the answer. Thank you.
So I been through a lot of these candidate forums and I often ask myself, what would we talk about if we didn't talk about the person in the White House or about some of the activism? Do we really have ideas of our own? That's why this morning I was on the phone with State Controller Susana Mendoza, and I've been in touch with some other congressmen in the area to try to put together a symposium that we can get together and actually come up with a solution that will be fair and will give our immigrants a pathway to citizenship and giving them the ability to work and live in this country. Enough with the screaming and the yelling. Let's be a party of ideas. Let's be a party of solutions. And let's figure this thing out and get it done right. Thank you.
Does anybody else feel like our democracy has been taken hostage? ICE is now among the top 20 largest standing armies in the world. It is poorly trained, poorly recruited. It has an agenda that is ideologically motivated. And they are sloppy, they are not professional, and they are not constitutional. And they are doing damage to every institution and our sense of justice. When a nation's taken hostage, you don't get too far by screaming at the hostage taker, but you do get somewhere by organizing, by isolating. We have a debt ceiling vote ahead of us. And without accountability, without a full appreciation that the president must follow the law, I think we have to stop giving the hostage taker money.
Speaking of hostage taker, Phil, you have like 7 microphones over here. I gotta say, this is great because since 2002, when ICE was created, I've been a part of the activists on the ground saying ICE needs to be abolished. And this is one of the first times that I'm hearing folks who are elected and want to be elected listening to that and not trying to water it down. What we know, what the folks who have been on the ground for decades know, is that this is not new. This is just now in your backyard. And it is more increased. It is dangerous, it is horrible, but I gotta tell you, ICE has been in Skokie and has been in Evanston and it's been around longer than just this past week, longer than just this year. ICE has been terrorizing working people and workers for not 20 years. Oh, that stop sign gets me. We'll talk later.
Abolish ICE, put that money in places that it actually matters, serving the American people, and we need trials. These are the 3 things that we need to go into when it comes to the conversation about ICE. Now, I have been protesting at the Broadview facility where our neighbors are taken when they are abducted off the streets for the past 7, 8 weeks now, Adam? 6? 7. It's not fun, but we need attention here. And as your congresswoman, I will keep coming back to insist to inspect that facility as allowed by law. We will not stop. We cannot let up, and we have to hold ICE accountable. It's not enough to pretend like this was a bad dream. We need accountability.
So my last job at the Pentagon was working with Northern Command as a policy writer. We were in the room when all these crazy executive orders started coming out, including the massive budget increase for ICE. ICE is a part of the Department of Homeland Security. It's one of 14 agencies that falls under it. And this was a massive budget that took away from other important assets like the Coast Guard so that they can come out here and do this. And we need to be honest about what ICE is. It's about more than just immigrants. It is an intimidation force. It's out here to scare Americans, and it's the easiest way this administration can legally exert its force and continue its executive overstep. What Congress can do about it is we can have oversight committees actually look at specific interactions they're doing, bring up charges or recommend charges, and more importantly, Congress has the power to stop budgeting and cut budgeting for these organizations.
Thank you. We're gonna mix it up a little bit. Our next question is just going to be to some candidates. Illinois has made major strides towards 100% clean energy through the Climate and Equitable Jobs Act, CEJA. How would you support or expand federal investments to help Illinois meet those clean energy goals? And this question is for candidates 8, 1, 12, 3, and 10. Candidates Biss, Poland, Manrique, Ford, and Leon. Beginning with Mr. Biss.
We know what we need to do. We need a Green New Deal. We need massive investments in clean energy. We need regulation to actually forcibly move away from the utilization of fossil fuels. The hard part isn't knowing what to do. The hard part is getting it done. In the city of Evanston, this year, we passed our Healthy Building Ordinance, the strongest ordinance in the Midwest to actually move away from using fossil fuels in our largest buildings. Chicago couldn't get it done. Most other towns couldn't get it done. The biggest, richest, most powerful landowners in town all they thought they had us beaten. I fought back and I won. What we need is someone who's got backbone, who's willing to be in this fight, who knows how to put together a coalition to win, and who puts climate first. Because if we don't put climate first, we are in huge trouble as a species.
Thank you, Mr. Poland.
So the climate is changing. We need to accept that first and foremost. So we need to recognize that. But it doesn't have to be doom and gloom. Green technology can be an opportunity, can be an economic opportunity, and can be a new industry that will reset ourselves ahead of the rest of the world and take advantage of the situation. But being more realistic and pragmatic, we also have to recognize that not making these changes is also a security issue, it's a resource issue, it's an economics issue. We owe it to the people of the United States to take every viable step to be ready for the future, whatever it may bring.
Thank you, Ms. Manrique.
I'm so glad you asked this question. For the past couple of years, I've been working alongside our trades union, our labor unions, and our climate activists to try to figure out how we can all work together to ensure that we can go forward with projects like the Green New Deal, but together. Because this is why it's important to have an organizer as a congresswoman, because you need to build power. We need to build power with workers, and we need to build power with activists. The only way to get it done is like that, is to ensure that folks that live in communities that are traditionally wrought with environmental racism, and folks who don't benefit from these green deals, that they get the proper just transition that they deserve. That we have the workers who get the proper just transition,
Mr. Ford.
Well, I'm sorry about the doom and gloom. Unfortunately, I do have a degree in public health that happens to be in environmental and occupational sciences. So I'm an environmental scientist. And I'm going to tell you right now, we can't just make a couple of buildings green and it's going to go away. We're losing. You see what's going on with the Canadian wildfires? That's just the tip of the iceberg. If we do not take a dramatic step towards a carbon negative future, we're not going to have a future. I have a plan. You can go to my website to see it. But you need to understand that all of this talking about little tiny things doesn't matter because it's not going to solve the problem. We already have too much CO2 in the air. We need to take dramatic action. If the environment is important to you, why don't you elect an environmental scientist?
Thank you. Mr. Leon.
Like many solutions, I believe the Green Bill is an amazing deal, but it is gonna come with the cooperation between business and the public sector. Imagine we just outlawed diesel cars or gas running cars next year. It would be unsustainable. There's ways to do this with abatements, with tax incentives to promote green technology in our colleges and universities, to have incubators, to work on nuclear and solar and wind power. This could be done very simply with cooperation on both sides of the aisle to work on a solution that is not unattainable, but one that will benefit us in the long run. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, also to some candidates. Illinois has the country's 8th most regressive tax system. The federal tax system is also skewed to benefit the wealthiest individuals and corporations, not the low and moderate income individuals and families who are struggling to get by. As a result of both systems, the state of Illinois does not have enough money to meet the basic human rights that people should expect, the ability to access affordable food, housing, and healthcare to start. As a member of Congress, what do you believe a fair federal tax system looks like? This is for candidates 6, 13, 5, 9, and 2. Candidates Fine, Abu-Ghazaleh, Cohen, Simmons, and Piatti, beginning with Ms. Fine.
Thank you. Thank you for this question. This is not hard. Millionaires and billionaires should be paying their fair share in taxes. A waitress should not be paying a higher percentage of her income than a billionaire when it comes to taxes. Why are our healthcare costs skyrocketing while billionaires and millionaires are getting tax breaks? This has just got to stop. Some things we can do for action. We need to increase the earned income tax credit, and we also need to increase the child tax credit. I have already voted for that and done that here in Illinois, and now we need to take this federal. Thank you. Ms. Abu-Ghazaleh.
Your shift at work should not be taxed more than Jeff Bezos makes while sitting on his ass. We need to be taxing wealth. This means taxing interest for the ultra wealthy, their investments. This means going beyond just their income because they need to pay their fair share. We also need a cost of living exemption. This means that any money you make under the cost of living, which I believe is $32K federally, wouldn't be taxed. And we could lower taxes for the working class while still bringing in more money with a wealth tax. This could apply to every single person in this room. And finally, this is more of a personal thing, but we need to be doing something about TurboTax and all of these asshole firms that have held our Aprils hostage. Our tax system could be so much simpler, and yet lobbying means it's not.
Thank you. Mr. Cohen.
So let me give you a solution to some of this, why we feel this big discrepancy between the very wealthy and the very poor. Productivity in our economy, which is how we make stuff, how stuff gets done, is skyrocketed, okay? But labor's share of that productivity, wages, has been smaller and smaller and smaller. And so one thing we could do is we create an incentive for companies to profit share. So that means the IRS is going to get a little bit less in terms of revenue, like boo-hoo, but that's a direct transfer to workers. That's one way to narrow this gap, to increase income for working people.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons?
I think this is an area that I've got the strongest record. So many Democrats talk about equity when it comes to the economy, and they're not using their offices to actually make it happen. I've been proud in the Illinois Senate that I led the charge to pass the child tax credit in Illinois. It was the very first bill I introduced in 2021 when I arrived in the body, because I remember watching my mom up late at night trying to decide between which bill she was going to pay. And so I'm proud that that child tax credit is now the law in Illinois, putting up to $600 back in the pockets of working parents all across the state. That's the type of leadership I'm going to bring to Congress on this issue. I'm going to be a staunch supporter of the billionaire tax so that the less than 1,000 people out there that are not paying taxes on their investments and their real estate investments actually start to pay those taxes. And we push for progressive revenue in the Congress the same way that I have as a member of the Illinois Senate Progressive Caucus in our state capitol, so that we can fund housing, healthcare, and so much more.
Thank you. Mr. Piatti?
Look, this is an easy question for Democrats, and we'll all agree to some degree. Of course, we should lower the tax burden on the working and middle classes. Of course, the rich should pay more. I think the problem we have as Democrats, I mean, that's an answer that's gonna get applause in a room full of Democrats. But like I said at the beginning, we've been losing. But we have to win back the country, and I think the problem we have is that's the end of the story for us. What's the next sentence after that? What are we gonna do to stop redistributing the pie that we already have and start growing it so that we can actually expand care and opportunity for everyone? I would love to see a Democratic Party that actually talks about growth and innovation so we can get to the kind of expansive care that we're actually trying to get to, instead of, talking about how we're gonna dole out the dollars we already have right now.
Thank you. Our next question, also just some candidates. What measures would you support to prevent gun violence, including accidental shootings, suicides, intimate partner violence, and school shootings? For candidates 7, 11, 4, and 1, candidates Amiwala, Andrew, Rosenblum, and Poland, beginning with Ms. Amiwala.
I grew up a part of the generation of school shooting drills, the same way we would any other drill. And at that age, we couldn't even fathom what that was. Gun violence is a health epidemic. We have seen people die at the hands of guns in the hands of irresponsible members who should not have had them, which, by the way, come from our neighboring states, not just from within Illinois. If one needs a background check to be a barista at a Starbucks, there should be background checks for people before owning mass weapons of destruction. No one needs an AR-15 rifle in this country, and these are common sense laws. I know we hate saying common sense, but to me, that is what this is. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrew.
Thanks for the tough question. There is so much that we can do to keep dangerous weapons from dangerous people. Of all the mics I've got. There's so much we can do to keep dangerous weapons from dangerous people. That has been my life's work. The requiring background checks, banning assault weapons. I am the actual expert defending our state, our county, and our city's assault weapon ban. It is the NRA that is deposing me. I have dedicated my life to this work, and what we really need is a Congress to do what 85% of Americans want, and to grow a spine and pass gun violence prevention legislation. And there's a second thing that you guys probably do not know this yet, but Illinois passed a mandatory safe storage bill. You should be asking everyone in your community to lock up their guns and keep people from committing suicide and taking those guns to school.
In 2022, Congress passed the bipartisan Safe Communities Act. And that went a long way, but not enough. We used to have a bipartisan support to ban assault weapons. And we need to reintroduce that and make them illegal. That's number one. That's what we should do. And we need bipartisan support for that. We also need to have liability and accountability for gun companies as well, and manufacturers, who the people who are making the guns, as well as insurance for any harm that's caused by guns. And that'll go a long way to prevent them from doing bad deeds. And I believe that we need to have accountability.
Thank you. Mr. Poland.
So as a soldier for 9 years, I've carried an assault rifle for most of my career. I am very familiar with what they are, what they can do, and what they're actually used for. I can say unequivocally, no American civilian needs access to an assault rifle. I stand by that, and I'll continue to stand by that. We need to reinstate the assault rifle ban nationally and start having common sense gun laws and common sense gun law reforms, as well as red flag laws. But we also need to be realistic. We have a Second Amendment. Guns are a part of this country. It's part of our history. Whether you agree with that or not, that is true. So we need to have realistic conversations where we're not yelling and we're not trying to take drastic measures, because we need to bring people who are willing to talk to us back into the fold and actually have meaningful, realistic conversations about what real gun control and gun reform can look like in this country.
Thank you. Our next question. Since August 2025, 445,000 federal employees have been stripped of their collective bargaining rights by the Trump administration, silencing their voices on critical workplace issues like job safety, fair discipline, and political interference. Collective bargaining gives workers a voice on the job, ensures that public services are delivered effectively without fear of retaliation by managers, and prevents the politicization of the civil service. How would you restore and strengthen collective bargaining rights for federal public employees and workers across the country? This question is for candidates 6, 12, 2, 7, candidates Fine, Manrique, Piatti, and Hamiwala, beginning with Ms. Fine.
Thank you. I understand the benefits of being in a union because I've been in a union for many years. When I taught at Northeastern Illinois University, I was in UPI Local 4100, and I've also been a member of the Writers Guild. So I know how unions can protect you in the workplace and how they can help you bring more money home. I have also led the charge that now allows graduate students in the state of Illinois to unionize. And as a result of that legislation, they are better protected. I've also made sure that we got on our ballots the ban for right to work in the state of Illinois, and I'm going to bring this fight to Washington.
In a discussion about collective bargaining rights, there is no I. There is only we. Collective bargaining rights are critical to this country. Without collective bargaining rights, our wages don't go up. And that's wages for everybody, unionized and non-unionized. No weekends. We would not have weekends without organized labor. I am a labor organizer. And every day I am building power to make sure that our rights stay strong. I'm building power with unionized workers that are already fighting for more rights. I'm building power with federal workers. I'm out on the lines and out at anywhere that they are. TSA, the VA hospitals, getting them to sign up for their e-dues so that our union stays strong. And I will do that, continue to do that as a congresswoman.
Mr. Piatti.
So this issue does touch me personally. As a public school teacher, I was a member of the teachers union and benefited from their representation. As a federal prosecutor, I was one of the employees furloughed during a previous government shutdown. I have some sense of the uncertainty and fear that comes with that. I think when we phrase this though, like so many of the issues we talked about, this is not a problem of law, this is a problem of lawlessness. When we talk about the things we're going to do in Congress or legislation we're going to pass to solve this, we have to recognize that under the current administration, there's no legislation that's going to stop them from doing terrible things. So I feel like I'm a broken record, but I always come back to, if we want to stop the abuses of this administration, the task is kick them out of office. That's not something we're going to do in the next 2 years. That's something we're going to do by building a party that wins and ending this for once and for all.
Thank you. Ms. Hamiwala.
While serving on a board of education and working with our teachers union, we found that we have what's called integrative issues, meaning we can increase the size of the pie, meaning we have issues that will increase worker productivity, have them get paid the hours and compensation that they deserve, and it'll make it so that the work that's being done is beneficial for all. And these types of integrative issues are ones that we've seen people that are greedy coming and attacking the 99% of the working class, while the 1% just continues to profit on the backs of all of us. Therefore, workers' rights are something that has always been at the front line, and these are the ones that deserve to be protected and expanded, and take it from someone who's a part of the working class. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, across the country, we're seeing a growing push to criminalize homelessness and mental illness. President Trump's July 24th executive order, for example, seeks to end support for housing first policies and redirect federal resources towards forcing people with serious mental illness who are experiencing homelessness into long-term institutional settings. This has raised serious concerns about due process and human rights. What policies will you advocate for to end homelessness and to ensure that people struggling with mental illness are not arrested or involuntarily institutionalized? This is for candidates 5, 13, 3, and 8. Candidates Cohen, Abu-Ghazaleh, Ford, and Viss, beginning with Mr. Cohen.
mean, what does this sound like? This sounds like pre-World War II Germany, right? That's how serious this is. So homelessness, the unhoused, is a product of the economy. You're going to hear me say things that are a lot of things related to the economy. So it's part of that. But it's also just criminal and it's terrifying. And we need to learn that lesson from history.
Thank you. Ms. Abu-Ghazaleh.
I can't believe I have to say this, but homeless people are people. And as material conditions worsen for so many of us, lots of people, lots of families will lose their homes. And this executive order not only attacks those people, it also gives the administration the ability to just say, well, you don't seem like you have a home, or you seem like you're mentally ill and we're throwing you wherever we want. So we need to repeal that. We need to be investing in our social services, housing, groceries, healthcare, the stuff we've been talking about today. But we also need to be pressuring other organizations, including the Democratic Party, to use its resources right now to help people, including during the shutdown. We are doing this on our campaign. By the way, if you have any coats, please bring them to our campaign office in Rogers Park. We're collecting them for the winter. You can pick up an ice whistle. But we need to be doing this not just in the government, but out of it too.
Thank you. Mr.
Big
Ford.
race.
Well, the economist calls it an economic issue. Guess what the public health person can say, right? This is a public health issue. Let's start with homelessness. Housing first. That's the model that works. That's what we need to push in Congress. People cannot solve their other problems if they're worried where their head's going to be at night. We need to provide housing first. It's not going to cost as much money as people think, and it's going to solve a lot of problems. Now, when it comes to mental health and people being involuntarily put into places they don't want to be, let's not pretend like that's new. This has been going on for a while. Anybody who's worked in this field, I've worked as a habilitative aide, we know this. My best friend was put into these homes and killed from over use of antipsychotics. We can do better as a society.
Thank you. Mr. Miss.
Homelessness is a crisis, a tragedy, and a choice made by government and public policy. And Donald Trump's decisions and this Supreme Court's decisions are a moral outrage. But you guys, I have to tell you that we have to win some fights inside our own party. I have done everything I can for housing, to address homelessness issues, to make housing more affordable in Evanston, permitting the first permanent shelter for the unhoused of the market in, expanding our affordable housing mandates. And it's been tough fights in a town that Kamala Harris won with 91% of the vote. My life would be a lot easier politically if I hadn't taken on those fights. But I will never back down from a fundamental issue of economic justice like housing.
Actually, good question before we return to the full group questions. Many immigrants with disabilities face barriers to accessing healthcare, legal protections, and public benefits because of both immigration status and disability. What steps would you take at the federal level to ensure that immigrants with disabilities have equitable access to healthcare, services, and accommodations? For candidates 4, 9, 10, and 11, candidates Rosenblum, Simmons, Leon, and Andrew. Beginning with Mr. Rosenblum.
That's a great question. All people with disabilities have been marginalized, all services. And that's why I've been working for 33 years to support their rights, including for immigrants, healthcare, and everything. So what I do is I make sure that the federal laws currently that still exist apply and are used and are enforced as well. Because we already have rights, but they're being ignored right now. So recently there were a few people who were disabled who were taken by ICE. And they were held for several months without any communication with the outside world whatsoever. And there were a few people, deaf people, who were arrested by ICE, and there were no interpreters. There was no communication, there was no phone call. They were left in isolation for 5 months. We have to throw ICE away, get rid of it. And it's a better system and create a better system for all of us so that we have equal access to immigration services.
Thank you. Mr. Simmons.
This question makes me think of my uncle Chuchu, who is now deceased. He died at 44 years old. He was an Ethiopian immigrant. He was disabled, but he was a genius. He could play the guitar. He spoke Italian and 6 different Ethiopian languages. And he was never served by the government the way that was commensurate with his dignity and humanity. In my capacity as state senator, I've been proud to have a constituent services office that serves everyone. And that takes intentionality. It means making people, even those that are immigrants and that are disabled, feel like they are actually human beings when they call the office and when they request constituent services. And if I get to Congress, that is the type of spirit I am going to imbue with our constituent services. And that starts with a member, the staff, or it starts with the staff, it starts with the culture of the office. And the immigrants that are disabled, along with all those that are disabled, are always going to get first-rate constituent services to the 9th District office if I'm a member of Congress. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leon.
I believe that all people, not just immigrants, are due the rights under the American Disabilities Act. I also wanted to just say that as a country, we are only as great as our weakest link. Compassion and empathy is what's going to make us great. We need to focus more on those people that need help. That's what government is there for. Their main function is to provide a safety net and an uplift for those people that have been left behind. Since I sold my company, our family foundation, we were very instrumental in helping fund and start Safe Haven and other institutions like the Food Bank in Chicago that help make sure that everybody has food security and has access to know their rights in Chicago and in the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Andrews.
When you work in law enforcement and you work in justice, you find that those that are most vulnerable are often those most victimized by crime. And Nick is right. We're up against something more than incompetence. We're up against more than just bias. We're up against lawlessness. What ICE, what immigration authorities are doing is against the law. Now, absolutely, we have to reform that. But the first thing we need to do, and this is crisis management 101. You have to have a priority. And the first piece is to hold this administration accountable. As you are out and about and you witness these, please, just like a bank robbery, be a good witness. Film, be safe. There will be accountability. You need to be part of bringing that accountability.
Thank you. Our next question is for all candidates. What role do you think the United States and Congress should play in supporting peace and stability between Israel and Palestine? For this question, we will begin with Mr. Ford and loop back around.
Well, thank God we're at least closer to a peace agreement. I've been very vocal about what I believe on this issue. If you've seen me at other events, you're going to watch me do something different tonight. I want us to simmer it down to allow this peace treaty to run its course and hopefully hold. What has been going on with the Palestinians is nothing short of heartbreaking. We need to do everything we can to support them, from removing rubble to rebuilding their society. We had a part in destroying that area. It's our responsibility as Americans to rebuild it for them.
Yes, what happened in Gaza is horrific. It's sad, it's awful. There's so many people who passed away. And as was mentioned, we need to try to keep the peace deal. We need to rebuild with a stable government, with food, plenty of food, and healthcare and services for all of the people that are in Gaza. At the same time, we need to make sure that there's no further violations between the two parties. And we need to make sure that both sides are held accountable. And that way we can have peace and keep peace. And the conflict is
Without the conflict, it will be easier to rebuild.
Because for so long, for decades, and thousands of years of conflict have been there. So we need to make sure that with the US government has the power to hold both accountable.
Listen, we can't deny this was a massive humanitarian crisis that Israel let go on too long. But we also can't deny that there are terrorists who don't think that Israel has a right to exist. So what I think is most important is that we hope this peace holds, but we have to recognize that the US is the leader of the free world, and we cannot turn our backs on that peace process. Nobody wants that peace process to succeed more than the other Arab nations around Israel. So we need to work with them. We need to work with Israel. We need to make sure that holds. But we can't deny our role as leaders of the free world.
Peace is not abstract. It is built person by person. Our role in the United States is to support diplomacy, humanitarian aid, and the hard and necessary work of rebuilding trust. As a Jewish woman, my faith teaches me that empathy has no limits. We must keep working until every child, Palestinian and Israeli, can live in peace, dignity, and safety. And in Congress, I will continue to work for just that.
We know this did not start on October 7th. We know this has been happening far before then. And we know that our taxpayer dollars have been misused by our government to kill innocent children and families in Palestine. End of period. And not only have we paid for it, but we already have seen this peace treaty be broken and misviolated. And the United States has no other role than to pay the reparations to rebuild Palestine the same way we've been in charge of breaking it apart. And then we need to stay out of it. It is up to Israelis and Palestinians to determine their own self-determination. It's not up to the United States to be involved beyond that. Thank you.
Israel and Palestine in 45 seconds. This is gonna be amazing. Okay. First of all, I know this may sound naive from the vantage point of now, but I still believe that the only long-term solution that makes a lick of sense is a two-state solution. Israel and Palestine side by side in peace and security and dignity and self-determination for every single person. Both peoples are legitimate. Second of all, to the question, the United States has a critical role to play in this. And we have tried for far too long to politely ask Bibi Netanyahu to do the right thing and learn that he ignores us. It is time to use our power, to use our budget, to actually put pressure on both sides to move toward peace. And that's why I've come out in support of ending the transfer of offensive weapons to Israel, as well as the recognition of a Palestinian state as critical steps toward actually moving us toward a humanistic peace for all peoples in the region.
This is a generational issue. And we all know that just this weekend, we all held our breaths and we thought that we would see an end to the suffering and the killing and the blockages of food and medicine in Gaza. And that has been tenuous and that has not lasted. And so as a member of Congress, it's important for us to bring oversight to our foreign policy and to where our dollars are going. And I don't think that our tax dollars, another cent of our dollars should be going to bomb innocent civilians in Palestine. We have got to stop this. And that means putting pressure on Netanyahu's government that continues to facilitate this humanitarian crisis. And that means making sure that we assist those that have been displaced in the Gaza Strip to make sure that they are resettled and that we bring an end to this human rights crisis, because our grandchildren will judge how we navigate this crisis.
I just want to say that from my perspective, there was no genocide, there was no intentional starvation. History will show that this urban war fought against jihadists was done in the most humanitarian way, with ratios of death of 1 to 2 by combatants that is unheard of. And I believe that peace will come to the region when The region is free. I've had the privilege to go to Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, Morocco. I've talked to all the leaders of those countries on a mission with other business leaders. They want peace in the region. They want innovation. They want technology, but it must be done without globalizing intifada. It must be done without from the river to the sea.
Breaking cycles of violence and terror is complicated.
Yeah.
It's complicated on the streets of Chicago. It's complicated in the Middle East. I've spent 21 years countering terror, working and training people to help pull people out of dangerous situations, but also to protect communities and countries. This is a complicated issue. It takes more than 45 seconds. It takes years to build trust, but it also takes leaders with a vision for peace that want to guide us to some of those formulas that we could pull right off the shelf. We deeply need to hold our leaders up to a standard where they have a vision and are willing to work for peace. And this is no different.
There is exactly zero things complicated about genocide. Genocide is genocide. And that's exactly what has happened in Palestine and has been happening in Palestine. And what we need are leaders who are brave enough to say it. In 2022, when I was a school board member, elected school board member in District 219, I noticed that the students who were wearing keffiyehs to graduation were scared, that it took bravery for them to wear them. And I thought that was some bullshit. Like, really? We got kids running around in all sorts of different stoles, and they're proud, and they should be. And no student and no person, no Palestinian, no anybody should be afraid to be 100% who we are, who they are. So we need bravery, and we need people that are going to say that it's genocide, because it is.
I am fully aware that I don't look it, but I am Palestinian American. 45 seconds is enough for me to express what I think on this. Everyone, regardless of where they live, deserves full legal and civil rights. Recognition of Palestinian statehood is necessary to be able to advocate for yourself on the international stage. The lives of Jews and Palestinians, our safety and our future are intertwined, and unless both of us are safe, neither of us are safe. No child deserves to go to bed hungry. No civilian deserves to be taken hostage. And anyone who commits war crimes should be held accountable. And if our tax dollars are paying for those war crimes that needs to be investigated, we need to follow our own laws. Less than 45 seconds.
So I'm just going to start and say the whole thing is a human tragedy, and we need to recognize it as such. As someone who's actually worked in the region, someone who's been to all these countries in question, served in those areas, actively tracked and fought against the Iranian threat networks that aid Hamas, that aid Hezbollah, that aid the Houthis, it's a complicated question. It is a complicated conflict. It is beyond Israel and Gaza. It is beyond Israel and Palestine. We're not going to stop it with clever slogans or witty tweets or powerful sound bites. The reality is the United States needs to reinsert itself as the leader in the international community. We need to put a coalition forward. We need to give the US some teeth back overseas, not to hurt anybody, but to show that we're serious and actually committed to peace in the region. We have the access, we have the capabilities. It's on us to fix this.
I'm afraid that going last, I'm going to echo a lot of what others have said. I pray that the peace that has, or the ceasefire that it holds, but I think the goals have not changed, which are an end to the violence immediately, reconstruction and aid for the Palestinian people, security for Israel, and a path to a real two-state solution. I think a lot of people agree on those. And I believe, like others have said, in the role of American leadership. I don't necessarily believe in the leaders we have now, but I think our responsibility is to use every bit of influence we have to achieve those goals, whether it's paying for reconstruction, whether it's using our presence on the international stage to bring people to the table. So I think there's a lot of agreement that America has a role in undoing a lot of the damage that's been done.
Thank you. Our final question before we go to closing remarks. Trump's big ugly bill created a permanent universal voucher program that will redirect billions of public dollars to private schools. At a time when public schools are already underfunded, would you support an effort to repeal this program? Starting with Mr. Rosenblum.
Yes, I agree that it is one ugly bill. One big bullshit bill is what I call it. And there's a lot in there that we need to undo, including the voucher program. Already, most of the vouchers are going to the schools, but they're not inclusive. The schools are not inclusive. Many children with disabilities are not allowed into those programs. A lot of people from poverty-stricken areas don't have access to those as well. So really the way to screen out the marginalized people is to undo that big mess and to make sure that all children have equal access to a good education, to give them opportunities to advance and progress in the world, and to fix the system across the US with a minimum level of funding.
Look, kids in every zip code deserve an education, and Trump's dismantling of the Department of Education is foolish, it's short-sighted, it's unwise as an investment. I'm the product of two teachers. I taught public school. It was the single hardest job I ever had. And if kids can't get a good start, then we're doomed in terms of their future economic hope. So the steering that Trump has of vouchers is another form of his chaotic nonsense that, of course, I will reject.
Public education is the backbone in our society. I am the product of public schools. I sent my children to public schools. I taught at a public university. Historically, public schools began for the sole purpose of making sure we had an educated electorate. Donald Trump is working to attack our voters, and we cannot let that happen. It will survive with a strong public education. He is wrong-sided in what he is doing, and we need to make sure that public education stays on the forefront, and I will work to fight for that.
No, public dollars should not pay for private schools. I could sit down after that, but for 40 more seconds, I'll say in a day and age where we are in the largest teacher shortage than we've ever seen before, we have the student teacher ratio is also something that is putting burdens on our educators. It is so hard to be a teacher in today's day and age. The COVID-19 pandemic, screen time, my attention span is even shorter than it's ever been before. It is a thankless job to educate our students, and public dollars need to be reinvested back into our public schools at the minimum. And we already are not even resourced because our zip code continues to determine the quality of life and access to schools that kids in this community receive, and that's not okay.
Yeah, of course, this is a terrible idea that should be repealed. Let's just back up for a second, right? The world feels messed up in these very deep ways. We feel disconnected. We feel these massive gulfs in society, and like we're not kind of possessed of the cohesion that we need to actually build a society we need and solve the problems we have. Part of that is the dismantling of a public education system that's supposed to be a foundation of we all, regardless of zip code or race or economic background, have access to the same kind of education that provides not only a leg up, but also a universal language for all of us to share. When they try to take apart public education and have this version for this person and that version for that person, they're tearing apart society. We got to fight back.
So yes, absolutely, it would repeal that. I don't think that I would be working with Donald Trump on much of anything related to education. And so, you know, I would start off by saying that, look, we need a dramatic reinvestment in public education in this country. Our schools are falling apart, the buildings are falling apart, the teachers are underpaid. It's going to take a real champion for education to serve in this district, to really bring justice to this issue and to reshape the debate in Washington so that we're putting money into our schools and not relying on property taxes and pitting local communities against each other like we've seen in Illinois for over a generation now. I'm proud to be supporting free college for all, more investments in community colleges just like this. My mother is a community college graduate. It can be done. And we've got to make sure that we fight the dismantling of higher education that Donald Trump has unleashed upon all of us, which is unprecedented. And it's going to take a real fighter in this role.
I believe strongly it's not a zero-sum game. I went to public school, went down to school in Island Park, which is almost like a private school the way I see it compared to the city schools, the city of Chicago. I have two kids that work in public schools. My mother was a public school teacher, yet I sent my kids to Jewish day school. I fought to keep investing kids in Illinois afloat. This was a very small program, 75 million for the poorest of poor kids. And it was squashed by the CTU while Stacey Gates sends her kids to private school. It's not fair. In this bill, it's a $1,700 tax credit, nothing for just poor kids to go to schools. I believe parents should have a choice on where they send their kids to school. Government shouldn't force them where they send their kids to school. It's up to the parents.
Not only should we not be siphoning public money to private education, we should be investing greater with a national strategy. As you travel around the 9th Congressional District, you're going to find some of the best schools in the country. Well-resourced, motivated teachers, amazing opportunities for students. And you will travel to other parts of our community that have classrooms with 10 to 15 to 20 different languages. And we cannot seem to figure out that that's where we should be surging in more resources, supporting our teachers, that that's our competitive advantage. That's our economic engine of our country. We need a national policy and a national strategy for investing in education, including institutions like this.
No, I do not agree with a voucher system. I am a mother of 3 kids in public school and a graduate of Northeastern Illinois University. So I very much appreciate the public school system. And what I know is that even under Democratic governments, the public school system has never been fully funded. And there has always been a line of degradation sent towards teachers, as if teachers are greedy. They're greedy when they're asking for AC in their classrooms. They're greedy when they're asking for a librarian, when they're asking for a nurse, when they're asking for mental health services and fair wages. They're asking for help for our students. And I don't know any other parents out there, if you're like me, but my kids spend a lot more time in school than they do at home. And that situation needs to be rectified with fully funding our public school system.
Public dollars should pay for public schools. So no, I don't agree with this. But historically, a lot of private schools started as an effort to resegregate students even after segregation was banned. And we are seeing a resurgence in this in Republicans creating charter schools to use public dollars to enforce religious education. In fact, a school in Arizona actually shut down a public school because there was so much funding going to a school run by a church that students couldn't go to the public school near them. We need federal funding of our public schools much more than we have now. We can't just reinstate the Department of Education. We need to expand our money there. Public dollars should go to public schools, and I'd much rather it be spent on education than bombs.
So short answer, yes, I would vote to repeal. I believe public schools need more money, not less, because our school systems are directly related to our economic development. They're directly related to the opportunities of areas. And I think the teachers and students all deserve better. I know a lot of teachers, and I can tell you they need all the help they can get. They deserve higher wages, and I will stand by that forever. They're the most important people in a child's life, they can shape the way that they enter the world or see the rest of the world. Problem in Illinois is that we are still using assessment systems that are over 20 years old to figure out which schools deserve more public funding or less. And that's just insane. The world has changed. This world is not the same world as it was 20 years ago. We need to update how we assess schools. We need to update access and curriculum to reflect the world that exists today.
Like others here, this is something that's touched me very personally. I'm a public school graduate. I was a public school teacher, and now I'm a public school parent here in the district. In law school, I was the director of a lawsuit suing the state of Connecticut for its inequitable education system. I think we take for granted sometimes because public schools are on every few corners, what an awesome achievement for the American people public education is. I never want to support weakening it. But I've spent enough time thinking about public education, being in a classroom and poring over school budgets to know fixing it is not about a little bit of extra money. It's about a huge expansion that we can use to pay teachers incredibly well, to build all the schools we need, create all the resources we need to make public schools so good that no one would ever want a voucher. And so that's why I keep talking about economic growth every chance I get. That's how we're going to create the capacity to do those kind of things.
It's great to come right after him because I agree, we should dramatically increase our funding of public schools. Dramatically increase our funding of higher education. And the reason is simple, and I'm sorry, I'm gonna steal from The Economist. It's a positive externality. All that means is that even if you don't have a kid in school, even if you never are going to have a kid in school, even if you went to a private school, you benefit from the nurse that went to a school. You benefit from the electrician that went to school. You benefit from, the accountant that went to school. These are not small things. This is one of the things that even conservative economists say we should be spending a tremendous amount of our money on, and we're not spending a tremendous amount of our money on. We need to fix that.
Thank you. We will now end with 1 minute closing remarks for each candidate. We will begin with Ms. Abu-Ghazaleh and end with Mr. Poland.
Fact to make first, that AB is still biting me in the ass. Look, we have a lot of really great people in this room. I think it's one of the coolest parts of running in such a crowded primary. We have a lot of fantastic people that I've gotten to know over the last few months. When you want to support my campaign, you're supporting more than just a candidate. You're supporting a really exciting movement. It's why we have over 7,000 volunteers. It's why we built a place of community with our office, with our events. It's why we are funded by small dollars, not big funds. I'm not taking billionaire cash. I'm not taking corporate PAC cash, and I'm not taking Republican funded cash like from AIPAC. We are supported by the people. If you want to know more about me, you can go to catforillinois.com, but I'll tell you this day last year, I was being deposed by Elon Musk for being too mean to him and having work that was too effective. And if that's the type of person you want in Congress, come talk to me.
Like I said in my opening statement, there is nothing that any of us are going to do in Congress without all of you, without everyone doing their part in the 9th District. Nothing that we are facing right now happened because of Donald Trump or because of his administration. It took decades of other people, of other elected officials, of other failed governments leading the path to letting this happen. There is a history behind everything that's happening right now. And what we need are folks in Congress who understand that history, who can take the accountability, who can be a part of the people that have been on the ground in this district and across the country, fighting for our rights, fighting for the rights of working people, because I am a working person. I make $70,000 a year. Like, that's not even median bucks. That's like nothing. So I work through this whole thing. I've dealt with housing insecurity. I've dealt with healthcare insecurity. I've fought to keep my kids in daycare, and I am a working person. And if you want to know more about me, I'm right here. Also, come get some whistles from me if you need one.
Oh, this is bad. 10,000.
Thank you for coming out tonight. It's just important that we show up. What I know about crisis management, and make no mistake, we are in a crisis. Our democracy is in crisis, our justice system, our nation, and the world. We are facing an environmental crisis. But what I know about crisis management is none of this work is done alone. That it starts with us coming together, building the kind of coalition and isolating the problems and building effective strategies to address them. One of the things I'm inspired by is that there are folks like me running in races across the country. Folks who took an oath to defend and protect the Constitution. And they are recognizing that this is a moment that they need to bring their service. This isn't just about electing Democrats. This is about electing the right kind of Democrats who will get to Congress on January 2027 and do the work that needs to be done in terms of bringing the accountability and the justice and asserting the constitutional responsibilities that the House of Representatives was given.
Thank you guys for coming out. It's a great group of people on the stage and a great group of people in the crowd. You know, I know a lot of the people in this room are mad, and they're fighting mad, and there's good reason. We need activists. We need people who care enough to go out in the street. My mother was an activist. She took us to the Democratic Convention at age 6. I got tear gassed. But I don't think my mother would have been a great congressperson. I'm running for Congress because I want to solve problems. It's not enough just to stand around and scream. I built Tandem HR. As you can see here, I'm not the thinnest, the tallest, the best looking. My wife thinks Mike is the best looking, but that's a different story. But people ask me, well, how did we build Tandem HR with three people and $500? We did it because we were diverse. We had an Orthodox Jew, me as a CEO. We had a Muslim as a president. We asked our employees every day how we could be better. We listened, we empathized. I stand in the 40-yard line, not the 0-yard line. I'm a product of Clinton, of Lieberman, of those people, Jackie Rosen, who want to do bipartisan politics and solve problems. Thank you.
I don't look like your typical member of Congress, and I symbolize everything that Donald Trump is trying to erase right now. And that's exactly why I'm running for Congress. Because the reality is that 4.5 years ago, when I put my hand in the air and said I wanted to be a state senator for the far north side of Chicago, the establishment told me to pound sand. I did the work. I talked about my community. I talked about the work I had done throughout my career, and that is why I'm a state senator today. And I would ask you to look at the work that I've done in the state senate, because in the 4.5 years that I've been there, I represent a new generation who shows up and does the work, and that represents the communities that they were put in charge to represent. And that is exactly the argument I'm making in running for Congress, is that all of these fights that we're talking about, this race, are the fights that I have survived as an openly gay man, as a person who grew up working class in public housing in the 9th district, the son of an Ethiopian asylum seeker and a Black American mother. Those are households that are so much like those that are all throughout the 9th district. And I am so excited to be here as a candidate running for Congress. And I hope that you'll consider electing me as an unlikely member of Congress who absolutely will shake it up once he gets there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. This has been a really great discussion run by an extraordinary group of organizations. And I'm just reflecting on what we've heard and what we haven't heard, and I'm puzzled that one thing we haven't heard much is the words Janet Shikowsky. Dude, what a giant. What a warrior. For so many important causes. What a courageous fighter, and what a role model for whichever one of us is lucky to try to fill those shoes. I think as you evaluate these candidates, I would ask you to ask yourself, who has shown the ability to be in those fights, to win when the odds are against them? I'm proud to have the endorsement of Elizabeth Warren and of 4 labor unions who've seen me in the fight and think I am the best person for this moment. I'm proud of what I've done. I'm here to humbly ask for your support and your partnership, not only in this critical campaign, but in the years ahead as we build a progressive America that works for all of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for spending your Tuesday evening with all of us. On March 17th, 2026, you all will not vote for policy, you will vote for a person. And I ask you all to vote for someone that is an extension, reflection, and representation of all of us. I have worked in the public, private, and nonprofit sector, and those things have three things in common: how to manage budget, problems, and people. And we are going to measure our candidate by consistency, credibility, and relationships, the things that money cannot buy. My name is Bushra Amiwala, and I look forward to representing all of us in Washington. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight. When the government fails to protect us from powerful special interests, we need to change the system. I have changed the rules on health insurance in Illinois. Now I'm taking on homeowners insurance, and I will do the same thing in Washington. When government tramples on our personal rights, we need to stand up and change the system. And that is why I have filed a bill to stop ICE from invading our lives and our communities. How do you stand up to bullies? How do you make lasting change? You can't just talk about it, you have to do the work. I have done the work for my community, and I want to continue to do the work. That is why environmental groups have named me the Legislator of the Year. Disability groups have called me their Legislator of the Year. Mental health organizations have called me the Legislator of the Year. I have more than 80 endorsements from my colleagues, both current and past, who know that I am the right one for this job, and I would appreciate your support.
Listen, if what you're looking for in 2026 is an elected official or a politician, you have some excellent choices here, and I mean that respectfully. If you're looking for change's sake, I think you also have some excellent choices. But if you want to stop chaotic economic nonsense coming out of Washington, you need to send someone who understands how the economy works. A 79-year-old shouldn't be working in a call center as a retirement plan. A teacher shouldn't be picking up an Uber shift to make ends meet. So listen, I know that job number one of a good government is to protect our democracy, our sacred democracy. But job number two, a close second, is providing economic opportunity and an economy that works for everybody. My name is Jeff Cohen. Thank you for listening to me and to everyone else here.
Hello, everyone. I want to thank all of you for coming tonight and for listening to all of us and all of the organizations that hosted this as well. My family asked me, why am I running? Why right now? With the awful situation in Congress, like, why right now? And I want to be the first ever deaf person in Congress. And any legislation anywhere within the US, any legislative body within the US. That's not why you should vote for me though. Because I'm a lawyer, that's why you should vote for me. Because I have your interest. I fought a bet against the big interests. I fought against presidents' administrations before, and I have solutions. I've improved laws and rules. So if you want someone who understands how Congress works and how laws are made and how the federal government operates, I'm your man.
Hello, let me thank Citizens Action for putting this on and for all of you to come out and for the extra 15 seconds we get to do our closing. There are so many things we didn't get to talk about tonight. If you've seen me before, I didn't get to talk about my 4-day work week signature issue of my campaign. Unfortunately, find me after, happy to talk to you. What I'm going to talk to you now is we have to win the House. All of this cannot happen without winning the House. To win the House, we need to win Iowa's 1st, Wisconsin's 3rd, and Michigan's 7th. The 9th will be a Democrat. Which Democrat is going to help you win in Iowa's 1st, Wisconsin's 3rd, Michigan's 7th, all districts we lost by 5 percentage points or less? If we send the same sort of politicians to Washington, we're going to get the same sort of problems. If you send somebody who's a pro-labor, fighting to fix Social Security with a real climate action bill and trying to get you an extra day off every week, maybe that's a message that's going to play not just in the 9th district, but around the country.
want to ask all of you to try to remember what it felt like in November when Donald Trump won. I'm sorry. Then think a little bit forward to what it's going to feel like in November 2028 if MAGA wins again. Because let's be honest, that's the track we're on right now. Democrats have been bleeding voters for years. Our approval rating is somehow almost 10 points below the president's. And yet I see us continuing to pitch the same policies, the same platform that got us. So I agree, there are amazing resumes and amazing plans on the stage. I would love for these candidates to have a chance to go to office and do it. We don't get to do any of it until we get the White House back, and we don't get to do that until we build a party that wins. I joined this race, I was very happy in my job, but I was very frustrated that we were a party that seemed bent on losing. And I thought I had a better idea for a platform that could win more of the country back to our side, build a winning majority, and end this madness forever. That's what I'm asking for you, is to join that fight. We can't wait for a presidential candidate as a savior. It's the job of everyone in this room to build that party. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you to our hosts and thank you all for coming out here. It is really great to see such a full room. It shows that people really do care about what's going on and who represents them. I've seen a lot of the world. I've seen the good, the bad. I've seen the incredibly ugly, but I've also seen the great things too. Right now, our country's in a weird spot. Things are not normal. We are not behaving normally. We have lawlessness and all over the streets and in the government. But if I had to describe my leadership style in 2 words, I would say I am an optimistic realist. I'm optimistic because I still have faith in the system. I still have faith in this country, faith in our democracy, faith in our neighbors that they want to do the right things. Here's the realist part. We need to win. We lost all 7 swing states in the last election. The Democratic Party did not change their platform, they did not change their messaging, and they're bleeding voters, and they're not appealing to anybody new. Right now, we need to make the tent bigger, not smaller, and we need to have realistic conversations and welcome people back who are willing to work with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we get a round of applause for all our candidates? Works best when voters are educated and empowered. And each of you here today, every candidate, every audience member, helped move us in that direction to make our democracy stronger. A huge thank you to every co-hosting organization who helped get the word out about this event. Clearly, we were all very effective in doing that. A special thank you to the League of Women Voters for being our timekeepers this evening. We get a round of applause. Shout out to our ASL interpreters and our captioners, Tony. Oftentimes, people think that Citizen Action, they talk to me and they assume we have about like 20 or so staff, and we do the work of definitely 20 or more people, and we're trying to get there. So if you want to support our work, scan the QR code or join us on November 7th as we celebrate 50 years. But we have 5 full-time staff, and hosting these forums is a small fraction of our overall ongoing work to advance progressive policy in Illinois. So I want to give a huge shout out to our staff, especially Julia, who was coordinated with all 13 campaigns. Several other forums coming up for Congressional District 7 and 8, as well as Illinois State Comptroller. So follow us and stay tuned for additional events and updates. Thank you all so much for your time and have a great rest of your evening.